The United States of America and its government are not satisfied with the previous election, 2019 election, that brought in Buhari, Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired. The United States government says there is evidence that Nigerian security agents, including the Department of State Services, formerly called SSS, State Security Service, it is a service that is supposed to protect the lives and properties of the people, but it has become a department of what? The department of the government, for the government. In fact, some call them Dara State Services. They said that the Department of State Services and the Nigerian Army intimidated voters, officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and even election observers during the 2019 general elections. According to the United States, this fueled the impression that the Nigerian Army worked for the success of the ruling All Progressive Congress. The United States further stated that the Nigerian judiciary was still susceptible to intimidation by the executive and the legislative arm of the government, adding that there was corruption in the judiciary, which made it not to be able to function independently as it is supposed to be. The judiciary, the Senate, and several arms are supposed to operate independently rather than being a parastatal of the presidency. These observations are contained in the 2019 Country Report on Human Rights Practices in Nigeria, released by the United States of America Department of State on Wednesday, a copy of which was obtained by Sunday Punch on Saturday. The 44-page report reads in part: during the year 2019, INEC conducted the presidential election, National Assembly elections, State House Assembly election, and local elections in 36 states plus the FCT, as well as governorship elections in 30 states. There was evidence military and security services intimidated voters, electoral officials, and election observers. In addition, violence in several states contributed to lower voter participation and added to the sentiment the army is a tool of the ruling party in many parts of the country, particularly in the South. For example, widespread violence and military involvement in electoral processes, including during the vote collation process, significantly scarred the governorship election in Rivers State. Additionally, several of INEC resident electoral commissioners reported DSS operatives intimidated them when the RECS attempted to protect voting materials. Some RECS reported security service personnel visited them multiple times prior to the elections. It added there were reports that corruption, including vote buying, were historically high during the 2018 to 2019 electoral season. Examples of vote buying were apparent in the rerun of the Osun State gubernatorial election in September 2018 and during the Kano State gubernatorial election on March 9, 2019. According to the report, the judiciary has been unable to function optimally due to executive and legislative intimidation as well as internal corruption. It is said court officials were also poorly paid, thereby making them susceptible to manipulation. As you know, the presently ousted chairman of the All Progressive Congress, and that is no other than Adams Oshiomhole, he once was alleged to have said that the presidency is in charge of the military, in charge of the DSS, in charge of all security agencies and parastatals. And he claimed that they have the apparatus and everything in place to make sure that they are in charge and definitely to win elections. But unfortunately, with all what he has said, with all the bragging and all of that, he has been kicked out, as a lot of people said he has been used and dumped. The United States of America stated, although the Constitution and the law provide for an independent judiciary, the judicial branch remains susceptible to pressure from the executive and legislative branches. Political leaders influence the judiciary, particularly at the state and at the local level, and of course, at the presidency. Understaffing, underfunding, inefficiency, and corruption prevented the judiciary from functioning adequately. There are no continuing education requirements for attorneys, and police officers were often assigned to serve as prosecutors. Judges frequently fail to appear for trials. In addition, the salaries of court officials were low and they often lacked proper equipment and training. Speaking further on the judiciary, the United States report noted that there was a widespread public perception that judges were easily bribed and litigants could not rely on the courts to render impartial judgment. The Constitution and law provide for an independent judiciary in civil matters, but the executive and legislative branches, as well as business interests, exerted influence and pressure in civil cases. Official corruption and lack of will to implement court decisions also interfered with due process. Meanwhile, the report also highlighted the high rate of human rights abuse perpetuated by security agents against journalists, rights groups, and the Islamic movement of Nigeria. It has the one that is headed by Zaki. It stated that Buhari's government had not taken action against any of the military officials that killed over 300 Shiites in 2015. Although that was at the height of insurgency, terrorism, and Boko Haram in Nigeria. And I don't think it was a wise thing for the Islamic movement of Nigeria to have come out to protest at that time, because the state of insecurity at that time was so complex, and Boko Haram could be amongst them, and they could blow up, and they were marching down to Asura. No one would allow such anyway. But the United States of America decided to come up with this also to point this out about the 300 Shiites that were murdered in 2015. The United States of America explained that Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State has set up a panel of inquiry on the matter, and the panel had also called for the proscription of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, which was done. However, the aspect of the report that indicted military officials had not been implemented, which is very important. But then I do not know how they would have handled this case of people that are ready to die for their faith, ready to die for their religion, and ready to die for their leader. The court had already ruled, for this man to be released on bail, but they refused, and the federal government claimed that it is out of their own jurisdiction, that it is more or less the state, Kaduna State, that should handle all of this. Extremism and fanatic kind of religion is not accepted anywhere. In the United States of America will not even accept any Islamic movement in Nigeria that want to secede in a kind of religious, of course, everybody has a right to secede. But then, even the United Kingdom at the moment, they're also facing the issues of people trying to break away, and they're finding ways on the ground to make sure that Scotland and all the rest of this, they don't want to allow them, the kingdoms that came together to form the United Kingdom, they don't want them to break apart. The same thing in Spain, the Catalonians want to break away. So countries most of the time will find a way here and there to make sure that they do not break away, as this will reduce their power and their human resources. But then those people are complaining that things are happening. But in the case of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, it is more about religion. The same is what the Boko Haram are also preaching, although they are more devious and more deadly. And that's how these things grow. They are very devious. They say they want an Islamic caliphate where Islam is practiced, and they are ready to push the Islam on every other person. And that is where it becomes a problem. The Islamic movement in Nigeria, they claim they are peaceful. And, it's quite unfortunate that people want a place for themselves, and they are doing this as a result of religion, not economy. They are not saying the government is a criminal government that we have and the suffering of the people. They are more interested in religion more than, it's a terrible thing. We have the Sunni Muslims, we have the Shiite Muslims in Nigeria. And however, the aspect of the report that they claim indicted the military officers were not implemented. The report as of September 2019, there were no reports of the federal government further investigating or holding individuals accountable for the 2015 killing and subsequent mass burial of members of the Shiite political organization, the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, and other civilians by the Nigerian Armed Forces in Zaria, Kaduna State. A 2016 report by the government of Kaduna State included acceptance of the Commission's recommendation to investigate and prosecute allegations of excessive, disproportionate use of force by the Nigerian army. As of September, there was no indication that authorities had held any members of the NS1T1V accountable for the event in Zaria. So it's a very tough one. As I watched the video clip of the shooting, how they were brought down, they were asked to stop and they refused. They decided to cross the barricade, and even the United States of America will not accept that. United States of America, police shoot people not because they are aggressive or because they ask them to stop and they did not stop and they shoot them. Police will shoot an American, particularly if you are dark skin, brown skin, and police will shoot you if they see you with hoodie and hands in your pocket. America do not take, they have guns everywhere. So as regards the Islamic movement in Nigeria, yes, I understand that people should have freedom to practice their religion, but when your religion begins to become extreme, you become fanatic, then it becomes a menace, becomes a problem. And I think then the government should step in at that time, as a lot of children are born into that, not because they wanted it. A lot of, people, women, married to certain men that embrace such religion, they forcefully, introduce these things to their wives and they push them into this. So there's the time that the government comes in as an umpire to look into the issues of religious extremism. Doesn't matter if it's Islam or any other religion, as long as there's extremism in it, it becomes, counterproductive to human life, and progress is never seen in such a move or such a religion. And that's what it is for now. What's your opinion about all of this that the government, United States government has decided to come up with? Let us meet at the comment section. If you're already a member of this channel, I say a very big thank you for the support. If you're not, let's grow it together by you tapping on the subscription button and the red notification icon bell below. It will alert you whenever videos such as this are uploaded. Thanks for stopping by.